All right. Good morning. Good afternoon, folks. Hey, I'm logging on a little bit early as I have the last couple of webinars just so I can kind of see who all is popping in, maybe have some chat room conversations with whoever wants to have a conversation with me over chat prior to the webinar. So um, I always like to see the prompt and on-time group prior to the webinar here. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up my stuff. I have three monitors here, so it's like the Kennedy Space Station. And we'll get started here in about 2 minutes. So if this is a recording that you're hearing me on, which for those of you, well, watching the recording a couple weeks from now, you may just want to forward the recording a couple of minutes here. But for those of you at 10:58 Central Time on Thursday morning, Central Time that is, that are logging in, this is live. So anyway, who do we have? We have got my guy Dennis. Dennis, how you doing? Need to catch up. Haven't talked with you in a while. My guy Paul has had a great month. Mr. Paul has had a great month. I've enjoyed working with Paul, getting cranking on annuities. Sal is an old timer when it comes to these webinars. Always provides great feedback throughout. All right, so webinar chat. We have the chat up. So if you have any comments you'd like to make, punch it into the chat as we go here. Also the Q&A pane. Some people choose the Q&A pane. Some people choose the chat pane. Whatever you choose. I have them in front of me so we can so I can monitor that as we go. We'll get started here in about 1.5 minutes or so. Got to make a reminder to myself because when I use my trusty whiteboard, I forget to reshare the screen. So that reminds me to reshare the screen after I'm done talking on the whiteboard here. How's everybody going? Or how's everybody doing today? I can't hear you, but you can feel free to chat in your response there in the Q&A pane or the chat pane. Todd's good. Got the thumbs up. James is good. Got the thumbs up. My guy David, he's an old timer with these too. Greg, nice to see you. We got Lyle, we got Nick. There we go. They're popping in. Have a good audience today. My brother Matt, look forward to catching up with you later on. All right. Todd, yes, let's talk about that. That would be excellent. We'll talk a little bit about the seminar today. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that, but what we're talking about here today is oftentimes the back end of the seminar. But yeah, the seminar system has certainly been a hot topic here lately. All right, so we have a nice audience on. It is actually a little after 11 so for those of you that were prompt, my apologies. We are getting started and out a minute late here. Man, I'm off to a rough start here. Hey, thank you folks for joining us today. It's the most glorious day of the week. It's webinar week or webinar day where the entire world logs on to listen to the webinar simulcast in 32 different language. All right, now that's getting a little crazy there. No. This is webinar day for those of you that want to join in here, practice management stuff, product stuff. Today is largely practice management. Today is around that client, usually a higher net worth client that comes to you and says, hey, you know, I have X amount of money. I have $3 million in my portfolio. I'm getting this much in Social Security when I decide to retire. I have this amount of a pension plan. How much is it, Mr. Agent, Mrs. Agent, that you would recommend that I can take out retirement income? How do I envision what my retirement looks like from a lifestyle standpoint? If I have 3 million bucks or $1 million bucks or $500,000, how much can I spend in those retirement dollars? Do you have the answer to that question? A lot of folks don't. A lot of folks will take a very, I will say, non-academic approach and say, well, if you're in the stock market, you know, 4% of your $1 million, you know, that's $40,000 on top of your Social Security. Or, well, I can get you an annuity that'll get you, you know, 7% of your $1 million or 70,000 on top of your Social Security. That's not a very, I'll say, academic way to look at it. Or I'll say it in my Southwestern Iowa terms, it's not a very accurate way to look at it in many cases. It's not a way that will really make folks who want a full-blown kind of retirement income plan really believe in what you're talking about. Make no mistake, I'm a huge believer in napkin diagrams, right? I've invented the napkin diagrams, not really, but the napkin diagrams. Hey, keep it simple. If somebody wants to know how an annuity works versus whatever, a certificate of deposit, just be able to draw it out on a napkin, right? Simple. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Well, but sometimes, not always high net worth, right? So I said that earlier. So this is not just for the high net worth, but maybe for the more analytical folks that like to see that plan, that like to see the numbers, that like to see your method to the madness beyond just what is written on a yellow pad. This presentation is for you. So a couple things. One is, this is not just for the quick annuity sale. I mean, make no mistake, you have somebody that comes to you and says, hey, I'm getting 3% in a certificate of deposit in the bank right now. Do you have anything better? Are you going to do this retirement income plan that I'm talking about today? Probably not. Probably not. Well, yeah, I can do better. I'll run you some numbers. Here's an illustration, a 5.5% multi-year guaranteed annuity right here. Boom. And many times it's done, right? However, if you've just done, say, a Social Security seminar, and the call to action was to get your retirement income plan, if you're dealing with somebody that's having issues envisioning what their retirement lifestyle is going to look like based off of their X dollar portfolio, this is for them. For the person that just says, hey, I have a chunk of money over here, I would like a better solution, you can certainly offer this retirement income plan to them, but I want to make it clear that this is not for every single sale. And what the genesis of these comments is from a webinar that I did a few months ago, which was role playing a retirement income planning session. And I had a couple agents come back and say, and this was my fault, by the way, because I did not preface the webinar with, hey, this is not for every scenario. This is for getting in the weeds. This is for the full-blown retirement income plan. But a couple agents came back and said, dude, got to be simple. Got to be simple. Got to be able to do it within a couple minutes, explain it. I get that. Again, I'm a big fan of the napkin diagrams. However, that doesn't fit a whole lot of scenarios out there, particularly a lot of the higher net worth scenarios. And this that I'm going to walk you through, this retirement income planning session that I'm going to walk you through, has sold tens of millions of dollars over the last few years that I've been helping my agents with this. We have a few folks on. Paul, we just had I'm not saying the last name, but there are recruiters on. They'll be like, Paul, what's the last name here? I want to call it Paul. We had an $800,000 month, right? Why? Because of what we're about to talk about here. Who else has been a part of this? It looks like Paul is pretty much the only one that's been a part of this. Mike is on. Mike will be participating in this as well. Yeah, it looks like Paul is the main one that's on that. Yeah, he had a great month this month because we've utilized this process here. So anyway, any questions, comments, concerns before we get started here with the meat of the presentation? Dave Ramsey gets 12%. Yeah, he's brilliant, isn't he? David McKnight, my friend David McKnight said it best, as in, Dave Ramsey has helped a lot of folks, but what he does is he and this is me paraphrasing David McKnight, he sacrifices precision for okay advice. He sacrifices precise advice just to give okay advice. And unfortunately, the entire world, outside of those that want precision, the entire world is just fine with okay advice, right? People like me, people like multimillionaires, whatever, they do not like anything other than precise advice. And that can be kind of a bit of the theme today. So we're getting more precise when that person comes to you and says, hey, I have let's just say $3 million, because this will go into our presentation pretty smoothly here. So I have $3 million, Charlie. And what do we have here? Let's see. So David, Not for now, but I want to know how I can access Social Security analysis software. Take it offline with me. Will do. All right, I want to partake. Already. We're already having a great presentation here today, even though I am tongue-tied today. Okay, so somebody comes to you. Here is what we're going to figure out today. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, so I have $6,000 a month between me and my spouse and Social Security. Well, the first question they ask is, how much can I take in retirement income? I want to retire this year. How much can I take in retirement income? What is my number, as I call it, going back to my ING days? What's your number? If you have $1 million in assets, what does that mean? What's your retirement going to look like? And I'll tell you, consumers, they do not know their number. They have guesses of what their number is. They know what Dave Ramsey says their number is. Well, it's 12% of whatever your portfolio is. But they do not know their number. So somebody comes to you and says, what is my number? You ask them, okay, how much is your Social Security? How much is your Social Security? And maybe that's $5,000 a month. Okay, do you have any pension plans? Yeah, maybe that's $5,000 a month. So you have $10,000 there. What else do you have? Oh, you have $1 million portfolio. So here is the complication of the calculus that we have to do. What is the calculus that we have to do? This is the calculus that they're asking about, whether they know they're asking about it or not. It is, okay, so Mr. and Mrs., the Mrs. particularly, is going to live until, let's be aggressive with the lifespan, right? Is going to live until age 94, is going to live until age 94 there. And that is a little beyond life expectancy, but we want it to be. And over that period of time, we know this. We know that they're going to get Social Security that starts out at $5,000 per month, right? Let's call it $50,000 per year, 60,000 per year, whatever. Let's be precise, 60K per year. So we know that. So boom, that part is solved. But then they have a pension plan, and that pension plan may be another, let's call it $40,000 per year. So 40K per year, 40K per year. So now we're at $100,000. If that were it, your jobs would be, you wouldn't make any money if that were it, but your jobs would be so simple, right? Well, your number is $100,000 per year, increasing by whatever it is that Social Security is going to increase your Social Security by. But where does it get complicated? It gets complicated with that asset that you are probably going to help that client with, right? Well, but in addition to this, I have a $3 million portfolio, right? So my question is what is my number? So how do you do that? How does the agent do that? Let me ask you a question. Yes or no? Is this the appropriate way to do it? $3 million over a 30-year retirement, $100,000 per year. Is that a great way to calculate what their retirement number is? No, I got a lot of no's. That's overly simplified, right? Why is it overly simplified? Because, well, that's just dividing the amount by 30. That's dumb. That's elementary. That's kindergarten stuff, right? That's not including the growth that $3 million will participate in going forward. It's not including inflation adjustments, because make no mistake, their retirement income, if we're telling them what their retirement number is today, it should be adjusted in the future to increase by, say, a 3% rate. Holy crap. So you have all that. So it has to increase by 3%. At the same time, that $3 million has to grow by, what's the projected growth rate? So you're getting, so this is what this software does. This is what this process does. It takes into consideration inflation, taxes, time value of money. Here is the beef that some folks have with the 4% rule of thumb. Now, you might say a more accurate way may be, well, let's see. So $3 million in a stock and bond portfolio, the 4% rule of thumb, right? You multiply 4% times $3 million, that's the safe withdrawal rate, right? So that means 4% times 3 million, $120,000. Okay, so that means then there's 60,000 plus 40 plus $120,000 using the 4% withdrawal rule of thumb. then that means, let's say 120K, 120K, then we are up to Mr. and Mrs. Client, your portfolio or your number should be around $220,000. Now, I would argue that what I just did there, kind of off the cuff, what I just did there is probably a more accurate, well, and all that brings us up to that level, right? That is probably a more accurate way than the first way, but it still doesn't do what we want it to do. What do we want to do throughout this process here? Number one is to not rely on the 4% rule of thumb, because a 4% rule of thumb has a 50% chance of running out of money before that client turns age 94, over a 30-year retirement, that is. We want to also optimize their Social Security here, right? So we want to tell them what their current number is. Well, here is where you sit right now, while using something more technical than the 4% rule of thumb on their $3 million portfolio. But in addition to that, what we want to do is we want to increase their Social Security. So maybe make that $60,000 a larger number. We want to increase their $120,000 here that they can get from their stock and bond portfolio. You know, we based it off the 4% rule of thumb. Heck, we can double that. We can double, and I just know that from experience. 8% or so is what we can do with this particular client. So in the end, yes, we will tell them their number. Yes, we will. But we will also show them what their number is after we optimize for Social Security, after we optimize for true retirement income, while at the same time taking into consideration the inflation adjustments that need to happen. No, a GLWB on an annuity usually does not have inflation adjustments, but there are other parts of the portfolio that do. So with all this being said and done, how do we get their number so it looks something like that, right? So folks, what I just explained, which is a little more technical, but I hope I explained it simply. If you can do all of these things, do you agree or disagree that you will probably separate yourself from about 90% of the advisors out there? If you can provide the client with a flow, with a conversation, with the software, with a printout that will do what I just explained, help them arrive at their number, help them optimize their Social Security as well as their income, that shows all of that complicated stuff being taken into consideration, do you think that would help you? Yes or no? Yes or no? And yes, the yeses are popping in here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into a case study. So what I was originally going to do is this. I was going to show you a filled out real life client profile questionnaire. So this is, I'll tell you how this questionnaire is used most of the time. How it's used most of the time is, hey, I partner with a guy. Some people will call me their number cruncher. Do we have Pat? Is Pat on the phone? Is Pat on the phone? Let's see. Let me see if Pat's on the line here. Do we have Pat? Do we have Pat? I don't see Pat. Pat blew us off on our webinar. But anyway, Pat introduces me as, hey, Charlie's my number cruncher. And he's going to go over retirement income plan that you're going to like. But here is the step to get Charlie what he needs. We're going to do a Zoom call, me, you, and my number cruncher, Charlie. I have no ego when it comes to this stuff. Call me whatever you want, the janitor. I will come on and I will go through this process with the clients. I don't ask for a commission split. Of course, if we've done 20 different of these and you're still not, getting the grasp of how to do it yourself, then I might start saying, hey, maybe I should get 20% of this because the prep time is a couple hours, then the hour. So people say, hey, so here is the questionnaire. Fill out this questionnaire that asks us, are you a citizen? Have you been married for 10 years and are now divorced? Why does that matter for our retirement income plan, folks? This is a trick question. Why does it matter if somebody was married for at least 10 years and divorced? What are we getting at with that question that we will ultimately put into our retirement income plan? That's right. Social Security. So this gets to the Social Security component here, right? And we later ask for their Social Security statement or the dollar amounts from the Social Security statement, to where if they've been married for at least 10 years and if that ex-spouse had big Social Security payments, that the spouse, the client, the one that we're talking to, can get Social Security benefits based off of that spouse. But of course, then we go into, hey, what most of the people here, when it comes to their objective with their retirement dollars, to enjoy my retirement as much as possible without running out of money. The heirs with this generation that many times, unfortunately, hasn't saved enough, the heirs are taking a back seat many times to this generation. They're saying, I want to know my number. I want to know how much it is I can take in retirement income so that on the last day that I'm alive, that I have at least $1 in my bank account. That is success to me in retirement. But what is that number? So we go through all these questions, and what I was going to do is I was going to actually use the actual fact finder or client profile form and then in real time input it into our software. I thought, nah, that would be overly tedious, but just know that seminars, number one, the step after the seminar, when we talk with the clients, hey, not on the phone, but you're in the seminar. When you talk to the clients, get your free retirement income plan. Charlie and I will do a Zoom call with you. We'll go over your retirement income plan. We will ask for the information for the input to the retirement income plan, blah, blah, blah. They leave the seminar, you call them up for the follow-up, you send them this document here. I've never had anybody that has listened to the seminar come back and say, why do you need all this stuff? No, the seminar has 150% prepped them on Social Security is about so much more than just Social Security. Okay, forget the seminar. Let's say you never do a seminar at all. This is something that a lot of my agents, hey, you know, I have this friend. This friend, he's made a lot of money. He's an engineer. Who's had a client as an engineer as a client? Anybody ever had an engineer as a client? Actually, technically, this wonderful couple, which I renamed John and Jane, this is a true life scenario we're going to get into. They are both engineers, wonderful couple. And they filled out the fact finder here. And what I did was I took the information they put into the fact finder, and you're about to see what we came up with and what is probably going to be, the deal's going to be sealed probably within about 3 weeks here. They've committed to everything here, which is cool. They've committed to 2 annuities totaling around $1.2 million. They've committed to a $15,000 a year long-term care policy. And yeah, that's it. So 3 different sales that will come from it. And we're doing a great job for those clients. They cannot argue from an engineering intellectual standpoint. They cannot argue against the math. So we take this information. By the way, what is your monthly budget here? We want to know what their budget is, because that's the goal that we want to hit. When you view yourself in retirement, what would be a successful retirement, right? You know, simple math says, well, if they have $2,000 a month in Social Security, $3,000 a month or whatever in a pension plan coming in, which is $5,000, but they say a successful retirement's going to require $10,000 a month in income, then we know that we have a $5,000 gap to fill there. Is it possible? Many times it's not possible, but most of the time it is possible, because usually they have reasonable expectations when they have their goal. So the information, what happens many times is you will send me this. Hey, client XYZ filled this out. Can you work your magic, put together the retirement income plan? And we do a Zoom call. Can we schedule a Zoom call on this day, this time, etc.? So they fill it out, they send it to us. And what happens is this. So what this is called here is this is called Journey Guide. Journey Guide is the retirement income and Social Security planning software. What you're looking at here is after the process that I was going to show you. I was going to go through, take that little form that the consumers actually filled out and go in and say, okay, so what do we do here? Well, we put $1 million because they have an IRA with Schwab. They also have a $200,000, et cetera, but I already filled this out. So you on the back end, if you put yourself in the consumer's shoes when you're looking at this, what would we have done for these consumers? So they have similar Social Security, similar pension income like what I just showed you there, as well as a $3 million portfolio. And we'll get into this. Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, by the end of this, you're going to see how it is that we are able to take your current number in blue. This is your number right now. You want to retire this year. This is your number right now. It's $133,000 after tax. $133,000 per year. That's great. That's what? That's $11,000 per month in your pocket after taxes. We always look at this after taxes because that is what we optimize for after taxes, after Social Security taxes, after IRA taxes. But here's what we're able to do. By the time all of this is said and done, this multi-stair-step process that we will go through, if you were to ask me, after making all these adjustments to your portfolio, if you were to then ask me, okay, now what is my number? We've increased it by about $40,000 based off your projected lifetime, which we're aggressive with, right? Why? Because you don't want to run out of money. We've increased it by about $40,000 over your lifetime. That comes out to additional wealth of around $2.1 million, or almost 30% more in retirement income that you can have. Again, taking into consideration all this other crap, the inflation. Well, how would my stocks and bonds perform? Because that's where my money is now. Stocks and bonds, they've done great over time, right? And those perform well with our $3 million. So taking into consideration the time value of money, the inflation, the taxes, all that stuff, what is your number? My answer to that question is, it depends. If you want to stay where you are, I would say, based off a good amount of science, your number is $133,000. If you want to make these adjustments, including long-term care insurance, by the way, usually I won't throw that out there right up front, but it's $172,000. So what I've just explained here is with the added load on their finances of a long-term care policy to the tune of $15,000 per year premium. So this is actually, if you're able to generate net an additional $40,000 in income after paying for a long-term care policy, why would they argue against that long-term care policy? I wouldn't say it's house money at that point, but it's kind of a similar analogy, right? So anyway, here is what we put into the system. Hey, come on. It's loading. Can everybody see the journey guide and then loading? Please wait. Can you guys and gals see this? I want to make sure you can see it. So at least I know that I'm sharing my screen correctly. And it'll pop up here in a bit. Yes, it is loading. Awesome. Any questions? I see somebody's raised their hand. Who raised their hand? Ask a question if you have a question. Maybe you just raised your hand because, yep, I see it. Come on. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take it off screen. Why? Because I don't want you to see all my clients. And then I'm just going to log back into it. It shows my list of clients, and then I'll go back to John and Jane, and then I'll bring it back over to you. In the meantime, enjoy the beach. All right. So while this is loading, apparently Journey Guide is just really slow right now. I'm going to show you something. Is everybody familiar with the engine, that comes up with, okay, so you have a stock and bond portfolio. How much is it that you can withdraw? Which is dependent. Is anybody familiar with the engine, what it is and how it works? Give me a hint if you are familiar with it. Actually, that's a bit of a trick question. Monte Carlo simulations. Are you aware of how Monte Carlo simulations work? Because if you're not, if somebody comes back and says, no, I'm not, then I'll explain it real briefly because it will help you with the analytical clients conversations. Plus, you should probably know how Monte Carlo simulations work anyway. Well, I'm going to tell you because everybody's coming back saying no. And what the hell is going on with Journey Guide? Of course, I use it 1,000,000 times a day. And well, there we go. 1,000,000 times a day. And what do we have here? We have, it has given me issues, but that's up. Okay. So a little bit about you. So what we do is we punch in the about you seems to be having the issue. All it is what are their names? What are their ages? One of these is 66. He is 66. And you can't see it yet, I know, but I'll just narrate it for you. She is 63. She is 63, right? He is 66. John is 66. She is 63. He wants to retire this year. She is already retired. He wants to retire this year. So what is the system going to do? The system's going to say, okay, so this is the year where you start drawing down your portfolio, right? If he wanted to retire 3 years from now, the system would know, well, but he's in stocks and bonds. There's a good chance that they grow. But then in 3 years, that is when we start to liquidate the portfolio. What is your number then? 3 years from now. But this one is pretty easy in that he wants to retire this year, period. He wants to retire this year. What is their spending goal? Again, a $3 million portfolio. Roughly. They also have, and by the way, it's pretty much all qualified pre-tax money. You'll see this in a bit. They have a pension plan, and they also, of course, have Social Security. So what I just drew up there, right? What is their number? So we punch in investments and savings. You can see here they have a lot. They have almost 3 million bucks, and it's in various things. Most of that is kind of 70-30 stuff. So mostly stocks, some bonds, 60-40. Yep, Pat joined us a little late. I was actually talking about you earlier. Pat is one that's participated in these and will continue to participate in these. What your number is, so what this system does is it identifies what the number is. Hey, if you want to retire this year, you have $1 gazillion in your portfolio. What's your number? And that's what they asked me. What's my number? And I'm paraphrasing that, of course. How much can I retire with? What is my income number per year in retirement based off of how much I have in my portfolio? And that's what this system comes back with. Now, I'm gonna get a little bit analytical for about 3 minutes here. The engine behind all of this, as I tell consumers, now when I punch in what type of portfolio it is, this is what informs the system into how your money, as it's set up now, it's going to change after we're done with this, but it's set up right now with being almost stocks and bonds. But the allocation, 50% stocks, 50% bonds, 70% stocks, 30% bonds, that informs the system. And does your money perform like this over time? Or does your money perform like this over time? Because there's volatility built into, well, the higher you go stocks, the more volatility is built in. So this informs the system how your portfolio is allocated of this that I'm about to show you here. So here is Monte Carlo analysis. Monte Carlo analysis says, okay, you are actually, I'm going to get rid of share screen so I'm a little bigger here. I am going to unshare the screen so you can see me. If you can't see me, let me know in the comments pane. You know, I love my little whiteboard here. So you are right here, and you have a $3 million portfolio, $3 million portfolio. And the goal is to get income from that portfolio. Again, that includes inflation adjustments, right? As I demonstrated at the beginning, that again incorporates how much can that $3 million grow while in the meantime you're taking distributions from that $3 million. I mean, all the math, the spreadsheets that have to go into, it's crazy, right? Hence you have Monte Carlo simulations. How does your $3 million last until, say, age 94? So she is going to live until age 94. We want to assume, we want to be aggressive with the lifespan, right? So what the system does, what Monte Carlo simulations do is they say 5,000 different scenarios. So we will take, based off their portfolio, 5,000 different scenarios. One scenario is this, boom, by taking out, say, $200,000 per year, 200K per year, your portfolio is going to crash and burn by like age 70. Boom, here's another scenario. Boom, here's another scenario. Boom, here is another scenario. If 100% of these scenarios, 100% of them showed that they ran out of money before she died, what is the success? What is the success factor when it comes to a $200,000 withdrawal from a $3 million portfolio. What is the success percentage? So talking Monte Carlo lingo, right? If 100% of those 5,000 scenarios showed that the portfolio died before she died, what is the success percentage that they prognosticate that that client will have given $200,000 per year? It's not rocket science here, folks. What is the success probability? Is it 0%? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 100%? What is the success probability, to use Monte Carlo lingo? What's the probability? If 100% of them crash and burn before we have our client passing away, that is a 0% confidence rate, 0% confidence. But here's what we ask the system. What we ask the system is okay, forget the 200,000 then. Obviously, we can't withdraw $200,000 because we want more than a 0% success. We want 95% success. So here's what's cool about the system is it says, okay, so what is the dollar amount to where boom, successful, boom, successful, boom, successful, boom, success. Yeah, maybe you have a few that crash and burn prior, but 95% of the simulations show that the client will not run out of money given this market scenario, given that market scenario, given that market scenario, given that. 95% of them being to the right of her life expectancy, folks, and maybe that number is $150,000. Said another way, what is the success probability of a person with $3 million with this portfolio being able to take out $150,000 from their portfolio and not running out of money? What is the success probability in this scenario that I just talked about? I basically gave you the answer. What's the success probability? 95%. So you get what the lingo is here. Well, there's a 95% probability of success. Where does that come from? Based off of what I just said, except about 4,000 more scenarios, that are run behind the scenes. But our goal with all of this is, you know what? But forget this 150. What does all of this look like if we add an annuity with a chunk of this $3 million that you see here on the screen? What does this look like in addition to this when we have Social Security and stuff incorporated? When we maximize Social Security, what is that number up here when we optimize Social Security, when we add an annuity with a chunk of that portfolio, when we hedge the risk of long-term care, because technically long-term care is going to happen later on. And that's what this system does. So no more of the whiteboard here. Let's get into the system here and see how we're going to optimize this, how we did optimize it. How? Yeah, they're going to have two different annuities. One, $1 million annuity, and one around $150,000, but a nice long-term care policy as well. All right, so if y'all cannot see the asset list, then certainly let me know. I have a permanent twitch from, I think, 2 webinars ago to where my share screen wasn't working here. So anyway, so Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, this is your current portfolio. This is your current setup. That informs the system of how your portfolio will behave going forward into the future. After you retire, we just kind of project, yeah, you'll kind of keep it as is, the 70-30 portfolio, 1% advisory fee. By the way, folks, does anybody have Edward Jones as a competitor? I'm going to be careful here because thousands of people usually view my recordings here. So I want to be careful. Anybody have Edward Jones as their competitor? If not, I'll move on. And it has to do with this advisory fee percentage down here. Nobody does. So I will move on and not give you feedback that all right, Pat, yes. Well, somebody did. So here is what I see a lot. Number one is down there where it said advisory fee. Of course, you can incorporate in how that portfolio will also get dragged down. You can bet that somebody's number is going to be a heck of a lot less if the advisory fee that's dragging on the portfolio is, say, 2% versus a 0.75% or 1% advisory fee. Edward Jones, I see this all the time. It's usually 1.3, and tell me if you agree with this. So you look at like the second to the last page on the client statement, you go through all the activities for that month, and boom, you see like it's not an advisory fee, it's called a program fee, You take that dollar amount, that's whatever, $200, you multiply that times 12. That tells you what roughly the annual fee will be on that portfolio. You divide that amount by the portfolio value. Okay, it's $2,000 on a $120,000 portfolio. Maybe that comes out to like 1.35. It's usually 1.3 or 1.35. You take that a step further. What are the holdings in this portfolio? And guess what the holdings are many times in that portfolio, folks? What are the holdings inside that portfolio that's an actively managed portfolio? What are the holdings 9 times out of 10 that Edward Jones guy or gal has in that portfolio? Mutual funds. So, and there's nothing bad with that. There are some good mutual funds, but aren't you kind of layering one management fee on top of another? But what you have a lot of times is well over 2% from an advisory fee standpoint. See it all the time with Edward Jones. I won't even say it's wrong. I won't say it's right. I'll just say that's what I see a lot. And you can arrive at your conclusion. I don't want to, whatever. But I do want to give you thoughts on what I truly see. And that is the truth. All right. So Social Security, like I said, they have these folks, 7,000 coming in a month, Social Security. Boom. We also have Joe's pension here. So here is a point where I say, here's what we have. We have your wonderful light gray bar here, Social Security over your lifetime. We have the dark gray bar. That is the pension plan, $5,200 a month in pension over John's lifetime. So you have the two of those together. The question is how much can we layer on top of this from your $3 million portfolio? Oh, by the way, we built something in that is a negative in later years. And what is this negative in later years? That's going to subtract from their portfolios, subtract from their income in later years. That is a long-term care event. We have this long-term care event going for 5 years later on. So here's what I did. I programmed in the system. I said, well, they're in a very expensive place. So let's include an expense to the tune of $120,000 over a year, $10,000 a month, right? Which is not uncommon. However, 20 years from now, it's going to be a lot more expensive than $120,000 a year. So let's attach an inflation rate to this expenditure. Actually, it would probably be closer to a 5% inflation. Healthcare inflation is much higher than normal inflation, right? But I don't want to get too carried away. A gazillion-dollar long-term care expense. We have a sizable long-term care expense embedded into our expenditures out here. So what do we see? Our goal here for these folks was $160,000 per year. That's what they said. They said, hey, remember on that client profile form, they said, my ideal retirement would look like around $160,000 after tax once we retire this year. Of course, increasing for inflation, because $160,000 this year is only $80,000 24 years from now if inflation was at 3%. That's the way the math works. At a 3% inflation rate, it's chopped in half over 24 years. So the system's going to say, here is your probability of success with the way that you are set up now, your probability of success when it comes to withdrawing on an after-tax basis, $160,000. So what is this saying? It's saying at $160,000, 74% of those 5,000 simulations actually end up on the right side of her passing away. I don't know about you, but 26% is too much. 26% chance of failure is too much for me, right? I like a 5%. I like a 0% chance of failure, but I'm willing to roll the dice if we can get this number up to, say, a 95% confidence level, right? Can we do that? Oh, yeah. Not only can we get this number up to a 95% confidence level, almost 100%, not only can we get this number to it, but we can also, for some reason, my phone just popped on. Don't know why. We have a ghost in here. But we can also get this number higher at the 95th percentile. How on earth do we do this? So here's what we have over here. What we have over here on the right, no, I'll scroll down here. What we have here is, okay, here is your $133,000. Why $133,000? Because that is what we choose as, we want 95% confidence, right? So here is what your number is. Remember our number, as I said earlier, Mrs. Client, the way that you're set up now, your number at a 95% confidence, for me to be almost 100% confident that you're not going to run out of money, your number is $133,000. A little over $10,000 a month, but Charlie, that's not 160,000. I get it. Let's see if we can get it up to 160,000. So you see here, the red line is, that is what our goal, well, that is what the system came back as. Hey, they can take 133,000 so that on the last day of their lives, there is still money in the account. There's like $1 left in the account. What are we doing here? How are folks? So check this out. So remember that expenditure that I built in? Why is that huge hump happening later on? So question number 1 of 2 on this. What is that huge hump? It's not 133 grand. It's a lot more. Why is it a lot more? Why is it not just 133,000? What did we code in to this system that I do with almost every person that I talk to? Why? Because it's reality. There's a 91% chance that one of a couple is going to experience this. What is this expenditure that I built in here that makes our income hump up for a few years? What is that? You guys have to know this. That's right. Of course, it's long-term care. So this is where we embed it in here. Oh, but there's long-term care. So what's this blue? So that means the non-qualified funds are going to have to be spent down. The dark blue, that means that some of the qualified funds are going to have to be spent down. What's the green here? The green is the spouse is qualified. So Jane's qualified money, we're going to have to spend that. So the red line is the after-tax expenditures that we have. And the bars is how we finance those expenditures, the accounts in which that red line is satisfied. The green line, that is the amount prior to taxes that you have to take out in order to net out the red line, right? So, but in a nutshell, Mrs. Client, your number is $133,000. So let's make your number bigger. Let's make it a lot bigger. So here's a stair-step process we're going to go through. So there are assumptions that we've made here, right? Number 1 is your number is based off of the missus, the lady, living until 94. We want to be aggressive with the lifespan, so we're not overly aggressive with your number. So that's what establishes your number. What also establishes your number is, sir, ma'am, you both wanted to file for Social Security this year. Actually, she already filed for Social Security, but he has the idea that maybe he'll file this year at age 67, which he will be at the end of the year. So that's our assumption here. Now, as we start to adjust what you're really going to do, you're going to see our green plan increase. You're going to see this increase relative to what we have over here. Is our green, which is my recommendation, is that going to surpass the 160,000 bucks? Well, you saw it earlier. You know the answer to that, but heck, right along with me as we check. So number 1, what does it mean to maximize your Social Security? So here is what this system will do is it'll take all different combinations. Actually, she's already filed. So the only combinations are, does he file at 68? Does he file at 69? Does he file at 70? This system is going to tell us which one is going to optimize it. Well, by filing Social Security at age 70, we're able to get you, we're able to prognosticate, we're able to project an additional, well, $2,000 as a starting point, right? Of course, that's an additional 2,000 bucks there. And then that increases for inflation as well. So this line has bumped up a little bit by about $2,000. I don't know. That's not a very good payoff for waiting until age 70. Okay, well, what if we took it down to 69 here? And high water mark is 135, right? But it drops down to 134. Let's see. Let's take it down to 68. Let's take it down to 67. So you see there, it's a trade-off, although it's not a big trade-off. Many times the trade-offs are much larger than that. So you can get into that, or I, if we're doing a Zoom call, can get into that conversation with them. Here's the next thing we're going to do. What if we removed, in the background, what did I do? What I did here was I took at the outset around $1 million, right? $1 million just as a starting point. And by the way, here you see that Social Security for him, zoom in, Social Security for him is not kicking in until age 70, right? So that line bumps up. But what did he have to do in the meantime? In the meantime, he had to fill that gap a little with some of his qualified money. So there is a bit of a trade-off, is there is some stress on that qualified money that he's taking from because he's delaying Social Security. But what I also did here was I ran an annuity rate watch report. And I said, okay, so whether he takes income immediately or later, what is the best product for him? What is the best product? From an income standpoint, from a guaranteed lifetime income standpoint. And what I found is that Equitrust was the best, at least from an income standpoint, level of income standpoint, as well as I believe the best for him in this scenario as well. Why? What does Equitrust do? Well, so Mrs. Client, I'm about to click on this, and what this is going to show you is a reallocation from your stocks and bonds over into something called a guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit on an annuity. Is that going to negatively impact your number over here to the right? Or is it going to have a positive adjustment? You guys know the answer. I wouldn't have it in here to begin with, right? Of course, once I click on the annuity, what's that going to do? Check out this income increase. It increased by, what was that? Was that around $20,000 or so that it increased by? Without the annuity, so let's just go to maximize Social Security. Boom, maximize Social Security. It's 135,000. With the annuity, maximize Social Security plus the annuity. It's significant, right? Why did that happen? How are we able to get so much more income out of this annuity versus your stock and bond portfolio? Because yeah, 25,000 increase. Because what we have here is this wonderful little green bar that is now incorporated in here. This wonderful little green bar that's incorporated. And by the way, what I demonstrated here was that there's kind of a sweet spot to where it's not going to kick in for another 7 years or so. Kind of a sweet spot to where you let that annuity ride. Why? Because it's got something called an 8% roll-up. Think of Social Security, right? Social Security gives you 8% credits, delayed retirement credits for every year that you delay. This is similar. And I found a sweet spot here. So even though you are somewhat draining your qualified pre-tax retirement account early. Why? Because we're filing for Social Security late, as well as we're taking the annuity money a little bit late, quite a bit later, right? What you have here is a huge increase in income, $160,000, because $1 million going into this annuity is going to generate $130,000, 100% guaranteed, starting in 7 years. 130, that's like 13% of what we put in. How is that possible? And that's when I go into my own little spiel, annuity sales ideas, annuity napkin diagrams, right? which I won't get into here because I want to be done here in 8 minutes. But so what you see here, well, wouldn't it have been better if we just kept that money invested in the stock market? Dude, the numbers say that. The numbers answer your question here. This is exactly what this system does. The numbers answer your question. And by the way, for the securities folks, oh, but annuities, they don't keep pace with inflation. 130,000 is 130,000, period. I agree. But by having that massive amount of annuity income here, the other stuff has less stress on it, which is able to obviously more than keep pace with inflation on the entire income stream. Any questions on that? And by the way, check this out. I can go in here. There's actually a function where you can go in here and you could find various products in here. I usually don't use that. I will make my own annuity, which is here's what the roll-up is, here's what the payout factor is, just because it's usually more accurate that way. So I embedded the Equitrust pricing in here. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but there are multiple ways. There are products already set up in there. Athene is in there. American Equity is in there. You can click on, or you can go in there and say, well, but on this product, the payout factor is this, the roll-up is that, and it will calculate this. And always when I'm done, I say, okay, so I want to verify the math here. So I'll run an Equitrust illustration just to double check that journey guide is correct. Here's another thing that we're doing. So this is where the agent, who's brilliant, he's a Roth IRA conversion expert, I would call him. What he's doing is, another reason I chose Equitrust is because this GLWB that's going to delay for like 7 years, he wants to help this client convert over that 7-year period of time into a Roth IRA. So technically what's going to happen, technically what's going to happen is that $1 million that's going in pre-tax, it's going to be coming out $130,000 per year, Roth IRA, no tax, right? Post-tax, no tax, whatever. It's not being taxed. Now, he's using his software. Okay, what's the tax liability along the way? It gets a little more in depth than just this, but just know that, yeah, $1 million going in, boom, he has $130,000 later after tax. And let me know if you have any questions on any of that. So here's the last step. The last step is this. But this kind of sucks here, right? This sucks because that big hump, is there a way that we could take out this big hump here? Because we've programmed in the long-term care expenditure that's going to happen later on. What if we have a long-term care policy that were to completely offset, that were to completely offset that hump? Would that make our dollar amount get bigger? Would that make our dollar amount get bigger? So folks, what determines the answer to that question? Will it make our dollar amount get bigger, or will it make it get smaller? What determines the answer to that question is, how much is the premium on that long-term care? If the long-term care premium was $1 million a year, $1 million a year, in order to get a benefit that will offset this later on, would that make our number larger here or smaller? It would take it to zero, right? It would take it to zero. So what our calculus here shows is, by adding a long-term care policy into this equation, is it going to make our number bigger, or is it going to make our number smaller? Because if it makes our number smaller, what is the system telling us? What is the system telling our actuary if we punch in what the premium load is, right? Because it's a big load on the income, you have to pay that premium. But in exchange for that, you have this expenditure that's paid for. If the premium would be better off left invested in the stocks and bonds that it's currently in, then what you would see is, when I click the next button, this number would get smaller. However, this number gets bigger when it's, no, you're taking the premium out of your portfolio, you're paying the insurance company, and in exchange for that, the insurance company is paying this huge benefit later on. If this number gets bigger, then what does that mean? It means that maybe you should consider a long-term care policy. And it means that your brilliant investment advisor probably does not have the ability to make not buying long-term care insurance a reasonable proposition, right? So what happens here? Our number gets bigger, a lot bigger. Why? What happened here? What happened here was it doesn't cover the whole expenditure, right? You have this beautiful purple bar here. And that beautiful purple bar is long-term care policy going on claim, the insurance company paying for that roughly $190,000 out years from now. Now, what was the trade-off? The trade-off was that in order to pay for this, he had to pay a premium of around $15,000 per year. One America, around $15,000 per year. But wouldn't that $15,000 have been better off left invested in the stock market? No. The numbers show that it's better to not keep that money invested, assuming you're going to have a long-term care event. Now, if you can 100% predict that this hump isn't even going to happen, then don't buy long-term care. Then don't buy long-term care, right? But who can do that? Now, folks, last thing here, and we're done in 2 minutes, like the first time ever. By the way, stick around. Please fill out the evaluation. Those folks that are on, please fill out the evaluation. I always get good feedback from that. Technically, what we did here, was I didn't do a $15,000 per year One America long-term care policy. I did that One America long-term care policy, but guess what I did? What did I do to fund that long-term care policy? I bought another annuity with the GLWB because that funds that $15,000 per year in that long-term, in that One America life insurance hybrid long-term care policy. Why is that? Because that $150,000 or so in the annuity funding that $15,000 or so per year, the numbers are a little off here, was much better than what you otherwise could do with just $150,000, or much better than if he funded $15,000 per year straight out of his stock and bond portfolio. So that's a quick idea for you. If a client has a large chunk of money and wants a long-term care policy, have you looked at the options with the huge payout factors that annuities have, setting up an annuity to fund that long-term care policy for life? Because that's what GLWBs do. Folks, fill out the evaluation. We got a little technical today, but I hope you see the value in this. And if it's too technical, heck, then what do? Then you bring Charlie, or as my kids call me, you bring the big C on the line with you, and we can talk with your clients. And it's about a 90% probability that you're going to get the sale. Fill out the evaluation, folks. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.